time has come to start talking about data management projects. Now, I want to start by saying that these are a fairly big part of the course. In fact, they're actually a mandatory part of the course. They're not kind of like in most other courses where you learn a topic and then the teacher gives you a little project or something to go alongside of it in addition to a test or a quiz or an assignment or something. These projects are actually part of the curriculum. They are their own strand. Skipping this is no different than skipping something like statistics or probability. This is a massive part of the course. Now, that said, I have tried to streamline this project to make it as straightforward and easy as possible to do because I used to have so many students who never finished the project, and what they meant by that was they never started the project because they thought it was overwhelming. So I've tried to break it down and make it as easy as possible, and hopefully that will motivate you to get started because once you get started, you'll get finished. Um, there are some grading schemes below and a bunch of details, but I am going to actually walk you through kind of the major overviews of each of the two projects, which we're going to work on intertwined with each other. You're not going to start one, finish it, and then start the next one and finish it. We're going to work on them simultaneously, and I think you'll see why in just a moment. The last thing I want to mention is you get to choose your topics for this, and some students choose topics that are more elaborate than others, that clearly are more work and a little more effort than kind of the bare minimum. Now, that doesn't come into play so much on my grading scheme, but I will say that if you choose something that is more work than is being asked of you, um, while I can't necessarily give you marks specifically for that, I can overlook minor defects elsewhere. If you show me that you've put in great effort into one part, I can usually overlook minor problems in another part. So I think I'm going to leave it at that. Let's take a look at the actual page so you can see what stuff we're going to be doing and how to do it. So if we take a look at projects, we'll start off with the project overview, which is this video that you're watching. So I think we could probably skip over that since you're obviously doing it. And then we'll jump right into the one variable analysis. Now the two projects we're doing are a one variable analysis and a two variable analysis, each of which is made up of 3 steps. The first 2 steps on each of them is pretty easy, but it's kind of fundamental to getting the project started to the point where you can actually do it to completion. So for project part 1, or the one variable analysis, step 1, you're going to choose a topic. So you're going to be doing a one variable analysis, so you can pick something that you're going to do a one variable analysis on. Now this is going to be something that is continuous data, which is highly important. It cannot be discrete data. It has to be something that you actually go and measure. Speaking of going and measuring it, it must be primary data, so you must be the one collecting the actual data. You must collect at least 25 data points. Keep that in mind when you're choosing your topic. You must be able to complete those 25 data points within the time allotted. What I mean by that is I had a student in the past who had a great idea. They visited a grandparent in Toronto regularly and wanted to do an analysis on the time it took them to drive to Toronto, which is a fantastic idea, except that they needed 25 data points and they needed it collected within about a 2-week period. And they went and visited their grandparents like once every 2 or 3 weeks. So it would take a long time to get their 25 data points that they needed. So for that reason, they had to choose a different topic. Everyone must have a unique topic. So what I want you to do is think about what topic you want to do. Email your topic to me. And then at that point, I'll either give you the thumbs up and say, yep, go ahead, keep going. That sounds fantastic. Or I might suggest a modification if there's something about it that I think is a little fishy or may cause you a hard time. Or I might say no, and usually it's because it doesn't meet one of the criteria above. So for instance, I had a student who wanted to do the heights of encyclopedias, and they had like 25 volumes of encyclopedias. Well, the encyclopedias were literally designed and manufactured to all be the same height. So the differences in heights would be microscopic, pretty much literally. So for that reason, I didn't allow them to choose that topic. There may be other reasons it doesn't have, you can't get 25 data points, or the data that you'd get is something you couldn't measure yourself, but be creative. Now, I will point out that most students that do this actually choose something that, well, they're going to choose something fairly straightforward that they can measure either the height, weight, or time of. Sometimes they measure the time of events, which is kind of cool. But you can do anything that you can measure. One example that I put up here, and I typed it in as a topic chosen so far because I don't want anyone to just steal the topic and do it themselves. But it's also one I don't think most students would come up with. I did have a student one of the first times I ran this course who was super gung-ho about this, and she wanted to do an analysis on the pH levels of different local rivers and streams. So she actually had a whole bunch of pictures of her running around on her bike, um, checking out all these different streams and collecting pH or water samples and doing the pHs of them. So that would be something else you could measure. Anything you can measure should be okay. Again, if you're not sure, you think it's kind of cool or elaborate, something you really want to try, just pass it by me and we can discuss whether or not it's going to work. All right, your two variable analysis, step one, choosing a topic. This will be the next thing you do while you've got, because once you've chosen your topic for the one variable analysis, I want to give you time to actually collect that data. And if it's something that may not be, it may not be take you a lot of time, but you may not be able to collect it quickly um, because it may be something that you can only do like once or twice a day. Then, I want you to be able to collect that while you're working on this next part. For this part, you're going to be doing a two variable analysis, so you're going to need to compare two data sets. This data can be continuous or discrete, doesn't matter to me, your choice. One restriction on your topic that I want to put in there, there may be others really, really specific ones that are kind of wonky, but one that most students actually try to do, and I would like to avoid, is where you're correlating anything versus a time. So for instance, I don't want you to correlate the population of Ontario for each year for a bunch of different years. That's not really a correlating two variables. I mean, it kind of is, but really it's one of those variables just keeps changing, and then you're just measuring the other one. So you're not actually measuring or collecting two separate data points. You're just letting one thing happen and then measuring something else. So we don't want to do that. So please don't do anything correlated versus time. For this one, I want you to have at least 20 pairs of data. I made this one a little bit smaller because some of these things are difficult to find depending on what it is. If you can't find at least 20 pairs of data, you can't do it. So for instance, I've had people wanting to do sports things where they were correlating two variables, two different sports statistics for a bunch of players on a team, but the team had less than 20 players. So it was impossible for them to actually collect 20 pairs of data. And for that reason, they had to choose a topic. Actually, I think they modified it to just include multiple teams or something like that. But yeah, we need to be able to collect at least 20 pieces of data. Um, One recommendation I would put here, despite the fact that the step two of this project is actually, submitting the data that you've collected, showing me that you've collected the data, um, I would suggest you actually try to collect that data at least roughly when you're looking for your topic, because I've had a whole bunch of students that have a great idea, but then when they go look for the data, they can't find it and they have to re-choose their topic. So you may want to browse the internet and make sure that you can at least find the kind of information that you're looking for. And then similar to the one variable one, topic must be unique, email me, get approval, and all that stuff. And for both of these, I will actually keep posting additional information or topics chosen on the site as students choose more topics. So just as an example that I put down here, again, tried to pick one that I don't think most students would come up with on their own, but a decent example might be the sale price of a vehicle versus the number of that vehicle produced. So for instance, if the car is only 10,000 were produced, how much did that one cost? Whereas if they produced 100,000 of them, how much did that cost? To see if there's correlation. All right, step two for each of the projects. Step two for the one variable analysis. I should point out that below this, we have the written report information, and it's got all the details, and I also have marking schemes available down there, so you can check those out, and you probably want to read those ahead of time before you do all of this. At least read them over to see what you're looking for to make sure that you're going to be able to do those things that are mentioned in the written report. But one of these things for collecting your one variable analysis is that you're going to have to make sure that you collect it to reasonable accuracy. So for instance, if you're weighing the weight of a whole bunch of mice, you can't put them on like a human scale and then just round them off to the closest pound because they're all going to be zeros. So that won't work. Um, Likewise, if you're trying to measure, you know, I don't know, marbles, the diameter of a marble to the closest centimeter, they're almost all going to be 1 or 2. So make sure that you're just choosing a way of measuring and a unit of measuring that will give you enough accuracy to do the analysis. For this part, you are going to actually include photos in your written report of you collecting the data. So you're going to have to take pictures of whatever it is that you're measuring. So I want to see the things that you're measuring. I want to see you taking the measurements. If you want to do the big thumbs up, cheesy smile picture, that's cool. And also, I want to see what measurement devices or single device that you're using to take your measurements. If you've got a problem with doing any of those, contact me and we'll try and work something out. But those are basically my evidence that you actually are collecting data and not just making up a bunch of stuff. The two variable analysis, this data is going to be data that's collected online. You're going to go find some stuff on the internet. You are going to have to cite your data, and you should be able to give me the URLs that take me directly to the data that you have. So for instance, do not use a reference like, for instance, oh, I got my data from Google. Google is not the site you went to get your data. Google's the site you went to look for a site to find your data. That's like in English class having an essay and citing library as your source. You have to be more specific than that. So an example I gave here was if you're doing something with Simpsons characters, here's an actual link that takes you exactly to the Wikipedia page with Simpsons characters and all the details on it. So whatever it is you're doing, I want to be able to click that button and go exactly to the data that you're using in your project. Then once all that's done, you can actually start the written reports. The written reports are extremely straightforward and prescribed. They tell you what sections to call everything. They tell you what to do in each section, and they have a marking scheme for each section. Now, I know some students in the past have had thought it was easier just to go to the marking scheme and skip the actual instruction sheet. The problem with the marking scheme is it doesn't give you the details that you needed. So for instance, in the marking scheme, it may say, the scatter plot is provided. It may not tell you what to have on that scatter plot. It may not tell you all the details of what you need to include in the scatter plot or how to make the scatter plot. So just having the checkbox there doesn't necessarily give you all the details. So please read over both of those for both projects. And finally, a little note on late projects, because this tends to happen more often than not. Um, I don't want having a late project. Like I'm not going to just put a cutoff date and say, no, you can't hand it in anymore because it's pretty much an automatic fail in the course. But I want you to take the due dates seriously on this because getting a whole bunch of these at the end of the course is a real problem. Um, these can take me quite a while to grade. And if I get a whole bunch of them last minute, usually at the end of the course, I'm already getting exams, I'm already getting everything else. It becomes a little bit of a hassle. So in order to speed up my grading process for late projects, in addition to doing all of the prescribed stuff above, I will also ask you to do a 5 to 10 minute video presentation walking me through your project so that I don't have to look for all the details. I can play that video while I'm grading it in addition to looking at your project um, to find all the information. So if you get it in on time, you don't have to do that video project. If you hand it in late, you have to include the video. That said, I think that's about it. I would recommend going through all the information here, reading over the documents for the written reports and the marking before you get going too far on anything, but just focus on each step one at a time as you're going and life should be good. If you do have any problems or concerns, let me know as quickly as possible and we'll try to fix them up and make sure you've got what you need to be successful. All right, good luck.